was built on the premise and in support of women of color who work in the field of counseling and mental health. It is our vision and purpose to be resourceful and supportive and advocate for all people, no matter their race, color, or creed. We have an ethical duty and responsibility to advocate and modulate. Sorry, I'm a little nervous because it's our first one, so I'm gonna try to slow down, but forgive me. It is our responsibility to advocate for a marginalized population. Therefore, it is the intent of the Brown Girls Who Counsel to follow the guidelines laid before us in our different entities and as women of color, and find a unified approach to tackle the oftentimes challenging task of designing or planning systemic change. Now, before we get into our conversation, there are a few questions that we want to take time to reflect on. And so we're going to show those questions, and we want you guys to participate in the response or chat box. So if you could go ahead to okay, our first question. Please take a moment to check in. How are you feeling in this moment, in this time in 2020? It is okay to say that you're not okay. I'll be the first to say, I'm not always okay with what's going on. So take a moment and reflect on that question. Mm-hmm. Anxious, confused. Yes, and you have the right to be upset, exhausted, overwhelmed, confused. Right. I'm tired as well, Nicole. I am extremely tired. It's overwhelming. And I'm glad that you all are checking in with your true feelings. And if you want to expound upon it or send private messages to one of the counselors online, please feel free to do so. Our next reflection, please take a moment to reflect on your why. Why did you decide to become a counselor, social worker, therapist, psychologist, or any mental health service provider in your specified capacity? So one of the reasons why I chose to be a school counselor is because I was a little brown girl who grew up and needed the assistance of counselors. And when I looked for those to support me, they weren't necessarily there. So I wanted to be that counselor who is always there for my students, no matter what they're going through, no matter what their skin color, their race, their gender. I just want to be that stand-up person for those kids. Oh, I like that, a change agent.
Can I answer that question? I wanted to become a school counselor because of the fact that I didn't have a counselor in middle school or high school that was there for me. Like, you know, you want to be the person that you didn't have. So I'm happy that I'm in an position now that I could be the school counselor that I never had. Being there to help students, especially children of color, because I feel like oftentimes we go ignored and it's easy for us to slip through the cracks.
Does anybody else want to reflect really quick?
Mine is pretty similar, the same reasons. I feel like I didn't really even know what a counselor was supposed to do because that person really didn't exist when I was in school. I mean, granted, things have changed since I was in, especially elementary school. So, but I didn't know, you know, that person was supposed to exist for me, you know, somebody that you can talk to. I was a brown girl that went to a predominantly white school until until I graduated, really. But it's, you know, just knowing that, you know, I can be that person for some of our students now, not necessarily just the brown students, but, you know, all students that have that person that they can feel comfortable talking to when they feel like they don't have anybody to talk to.
Very good.
Thanks for sharing. Does anyone else want to share why they became a counselor or a social worker, a therapist, psychologist?
I'd like to share. My name is Risa Curry. I'm a counselor in Los Angeles, California.
Hi.
And thank you. The reason why I became a school counselor was because I went to a predominantly Black high school. I went to Crenshaw High School. I grew up in South Central Los Angeles, my husband and I. And so we had a Black counselor that stood up for us, that did everything for us. I was fortunate to be in a like gifted and talented program. And so like literally she was our only counselor for about a certain amount of students, and say like, I mean, she knew everything about me. You know, if I got sick, I didn't go to the nurse's office. I went to my counselor. You know, she would call my mama like, it's time, I got to send her home. This is what's going on. You know, so that was profound to me, to have that voice for me and have a Black woman be that voice for me. So it was something that I thought about later when I wanted to figure out how I could really change. I couldn't teach, you know, because I couldn't handle 30 kids in the classroom all at once. So that's why I became a school counselor.
Good. And it's
Thanks
key
for
what you said. You had a counselor of color who was there for you. I had one that was there for me sometimes. So I if I'm honest, and I pride myself on being that counselor that's there, try to be there always. I just actually spent the morning at our 5th grade celebration. I made it my duty to be there for them, and it warmed my heart for kids to say, Ms. Morris, I missed you so much, and I didn't expect you to be here. I'm so glad I get to see you before I leave. And thanking me for the things that I've done, parents thanking me for the things that I try to be a face for my community.
Right.
Because again, I had a part-time counselor. Most counselors gravitate to kids who are the bad kids. And I wasn't necessarily a bad kid. I was a very bright kid. It was guaranteed that I was gonna go to college for something. So sometimes I got, you know, forgotten about. Let's go on to the third reflection question. Okay. What is your why for joining the conversation tonight? We all are driven by purpose. So with this question, please take a moment to reflect on your decision to join this conversation and what your expected outcomes are at the end of this meeting. What are some takeaways you would like to walk away with? And what do you expect brown girls who counsel to do for you, like holding us accountable for something? If you can go ahead and put that answer in the chat box. We'd like to thank all of those who are now joining us. We've already started, and we want to keep you involved. So we do have some snippets that we will be putting on our social media. So you haven't missed a lot, so welcome. Malicia, would you like to share your response to this question?
Sure. Part of my reason for joining this conversation was because I was having trouble even just addressing people that I work with and like having conversations with friends or just other people in my community. So I knew that it potentially become tricky when addressing what's going on with our students, especially because we are still in the midst of the pandemic. That's already one thing that, you know, they'll have questions about, because I work at an elementary school. And then on the other hand, with all of the injustice, I wouldn't even know how to address them had we been in our school buildings right now.
Do we have any comments in the chat? Anyone who wants to reflect on this question out loud?
I was kind of feeling the same way. I feel like I'm glad that we have like a little bit of time to prepare ourselves to have these discussions, but I do think that they need to be had. A lot of times we ignore them or we don't really talk about them with our students or even our staff, and it kind of gets swept under the rug, or it's almost like something that you don't really have to talk about. So I feel like I'm glad that we have this time to be able to have these conversations so that we're prepared for when we do get back with our students and have to, talk to them about this.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be tricky. And we've discussed in private, and I always share, we walk around, like, as I told you guys in the beginning, with somewhat of a mask on, like we pretend we're okay, but we need this outlet or an outlet to go to voice how we're feeling and ask the questions that we need to ask. We don't have all of the answers here per se, but at least we can come together and collaborate and come up with a solution, a unified approach to speaking to our kids, uplifting ourselves, and even educating our parents and our communities about these conversations for our kids and even for adults. So does anybody else want to reflect before we move on to reflection number 4?
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'd like to reflect again. I follow Miss James on Instagram, and she is really like a light. You know what I mean? And so it was really important for me as a young counselor, this is my second year as a full-time counselor, to see somebody that looked like me. And so when there was an opportunity to have conversations with people that looked like me about, especially with the world the way it is right now, I wanted to take that opportunity because I feel like sometimes I leave it up to the fact that because I'm like literally the only other Black counselor in my district. It's me and another girl. And, earlier this year we had a lockdown and there were like guns pointed in our faces while they were looking for people. And it was just a whole process that only she and I could really reflect on together. And so, I'm looking for a sisterhood. If I don't take anything else away from this, I know that I'm not alone in this. I know that I'm doing this work because there are women out there like you. So I'm just here to learn.
That is awesome.
Yes, I'm like speechless. Like that is the premise of what we were built on. Like,
Yes.
I came into this, I grew up in Broward County for the most part, DC and Tallahassee, where I'm originally from. But I built this because I looked around one of our meetings earlier on in this year, and it had come to me before to start this. And I'm like, I don't know anybody, and I don't want anybody to be offended, but I am Christian. So I just felt like God told me, look around. And each one of these women that sit in Brown Girls Who Counsel, there are 12 of us that are founding members of Brown Girls Who Counsel. Some are on the call with us. But I looked around one of our meetings earlier this year. I want to say the first meeting we had at the beginning of the year. And God was just like, look around. Each one of these young ladies are connected to you, but they're not connected per se. So it's time to go. It's something that we need. And so that's why I started this. I'm like, okay, I feel this urge to do it now. And I see now why, because we need each other in this moment. Listen, guys, I have a huge speech and I'm just feeling the unction to just move through these reflections. I know that some of us feel like Martin, some of us feel like Gandhi, some of us feel like Malcolm.
Come on.
Are very honest about
still on
how
Malcolm
we
right
feel.
now.
I'm a little Malcolmish right now.
I'm just gonna be friend. I don't want to be political. I want us to all be able to be heard. I don't want to be the only person that's talking, because I can like really feel you guys' heart and pain. And it's okay, y'all. If you feel that way, if you feel like Martin, if you feel like Malcolm, because we know Malcolm looked like he could throw some hands. we just want to make you feel comfortable in that, and then taking that energy and fighting the right way for our kids.
Right.
We don't necessarily have to go out and, you know, do the things that we see people doing that aren't necessarily us doing it. It's breaking my heart to see people of non-color spraying our buildings, burning our buildings in the name of us. We didn't ask you to do that.
Yeah.
We wanted to protest and find a change peaceably. Most of us are not violent. And then knowing we when we made this decision on Sunday that this was necessary, I called the girls and I was like, listen, we need to talk. And I don't think it's just us that need to talk anymore.
Right.
Because it's our youth who have no directives, who have no real person to look up to say, hey, that's not right. They're following the crowd. So we need to be the crowd. We need to start making that headway for them. We need to get in front of this so that they have that moment of, nah.
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Nicole said we're not supposed to do that. Ms. Josie said we're not supposed to do that. Ms. Tricia said we're not supposed to do that. This is the way that we have this conversation. This is the way that we fight. So we'll go to the next two. We have two more reflective, and then we're gonna open the conversation for all y'all. I haven't, that screen ain't even open no more. Because it's radiating with me.
Fran, I just wanted to acknowledge those who wrote comments in the chat box, like Angel, just referring to reflection question 3. She said she interned at a predominantly Black school with a predominantly white staff and repeatedly saw some educators not knowing how to effectively address racial issues. So I think a lot of us can agree to that.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we have Kim, who says she's worked at a primary school and would like to have a discussion on cultural awareness with her students and staff. We just had a leadership meeting in regard to SEL and distance learning, in which we came up with a new vision statement, which will include cultural awareness, which is very important conversation to have. So I just wanted to acknowledge those who were commenting in the chat box.
Very, very well said, ladies, and I appreciate that.
And Kim that says she feels like Martin with Malcolm tendencies, so relatable.
Yes, Kim.
That's me, and the Malcolm, the large sprinkle of Malcolm is Lucy. Okay, let's go on to reflection question number 4. Please take a moment to reflect on your personal and professional qualities. What qualities do you need to work on within yourself, ourselves as a collective, in order to be the change we want to see? So what is it in you that you know in this moment of quiet while we're home doing distance learning? Well, our last day of school is tomorrow. Well, it's today for the kids, tomorrow for me. So in this moment, what can you be working on within yourself to be a better counselor or be a better person in general? In our quiet, we do have our own thoughts. Like we do have our Malcolm moments, but how do we redirect that and make it where we are in control of it or ahead of it?
Okay, Nichelle said courage.
Mm-hmm. Anyone want to come on and share?
Hi, I'm Nichelle. I'll explain a little bit.
Yeah.
Like yesterday, I spent quite a bit of time working on my counseling website and adding resources. But I found myself battling with being PC, because even though I know my school is predominantly African American and Hispanic, and I've got an amazing African American principal who is more so Malcolm than Martin, I also know that anybody can see it within my district, and it could be seen one way or the other, and it really shouldn't matter. I know that I need to stand up and put it out there for our kids and our parents and our stakeholders. But there was something inside of me that really was like, do I want to put this here? Do I want to say this? And I didn't like that feeling, but it is real because I need a paycheck. So it's a hard line, and that's exhausting in itself.
Right. No, I really feel you on that, Nichelle. That is one of the things that I have to work on with myself, because it's ironic that we're going through COVID-19, and much respect to you all and condolences to anyone who has lost anybody during this time of COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic. I know my family has suffered some losses. So I know that I would be remiss for not mentioning that, and my prayers and thoughts are with you all. But it is ironic that we have a mask on. Really. It is time for us to take this mask off. Yes, we have jobs, and that I feel you on that, Nichelle. I think about and I pause, and a lot of the things that I say, I even pause in promoting this conversation because I need to be able to pay my bills and not to offend, but how do I go ahead and say some offensive things professionally? And I've talked to my principal, and I told him what I was going to be doing. I told him about Brown Girls. I talked to my district supervisor, who is also my mentor, and got the encouragement. And he is a non-African American, non-Hispanic male who is in support of Brown Girls Who Counsel. He may even be on this call, but he gave me the go ahead. And I told him, he was like, I've known you for years, and it's been there, and it's time to go forward. So it's time to take the mask off. We might have to wear a mask in public, but we're not okay.
Right.
And we have to, in fact, go forward with the question. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. This is Nicole again from Charlotte. I wanted to just piggyback on Nichelle. We're actually in the same county, and my school is different from hers in that it's a smaller school. It's a Montessori school, so it has a different type of culture that we have. And we have already had some racial tension at our school. It's an elementary school. And so, I've had just this past beginning of the year, have little girls in my office who say, well, she's angry because she has dark skin. And I've already started to have those talks with the kids. So I guess I guess it's a fear. My fear is like, now how do I make these parents and the stakeholders realize, like, we already had these issues at the school, now we really need, what do we do now, and how can I get them on board? I actually have an 8-year-old son, and I had the talk with him, and we usually think about the talk, we think about sex, but I had to have the talk of life with him. And we had the whole history lesson, and we talked for about an hour. And then I asked him, did he have any questions? And his question to me was, well, what are white parents teaching their kids?
Yes.
From the mouth of babes.
And it was really profound, and it really made me think. And after just reflecting about the conversations at home are going on, and that's the only way that they're learning about this negativity, is like, it's my job, because they're not learning it at home. So I think it's just like that responsibility that I feel like I have to teach these kids, and it's scary.
Mm-hmm. And
the same thing.
Go ahead, Nate.
I was just going to say, I feel like, I think I talked to you ladies about it. Sometimes I overstep my boundaries as being a school counselor, because I am discussing things that I feel like maybe parents should discuss with their children, but I mean, they need the information. Like, they have to know, they have to get it from somewhere. And if it's not coming from home, I think we should definitely empower our parents to speak with their children about things. I mean, unfortunately, it's a conversation that has to be had. And, I feel like sometimes I do discuss it with my students, and I'm like, I don't know if I should be talking to somebody else's child about this, but, I have to have the talk with them too. Like, the world sees you a little bit differently than, you see yourself in the mirror. So, sometimes, I just feel like sometimes I overstep my boundaries when having those conversations. It doesn't really stop me from having them, but I do feel kind of like uneasy about it a little bit.
I
ironically
agree.
Go ahead, Lucy.
I said I agree with Nay. I mean, just to piggyback on what everyone said, like, we do kind of hesitate when we're posting things on our social media pages. And this week I had enough, and I said, I don't care. This is how I feel. As a school counselor, I have an ethical responsibility to advocate for our children of color. They make up the marginalized population.
Right.
So at this point, I mean, I'm not a very popular person at school right now. I know my administrators are like, what's going on her Twitter, happy Twitter page. I am expressing how I feel, and I'm angry. I'm angry. I'm upset. I'm emotional. I'm tired.
And I think as a school counselor, they expect you to always be that ray of sunshine. And then, you know, dealing with everything, you kind of have to, and you know, the mask that we always wear all day, it's like they never really know, you know, what we go through all day trying to pretend like everything's okay, or, you know, not speaking our mind every time, you know, we want to, just to make everybody else comfortable. You know, it's not really fair to us. So I think somebody said being more assertive in the chat. That's definitely something that we kind of have to do. I mean, I think, you know, it's time to take the mask off. Like, you can't wear it forever. And it's like teaching our children, because they don't really have that filter right now. Some of them don't. And that's how they get into the trouble. And that's how they get into it with the teachers. And that it's not fair that when, you know, Johnny does this in class, he doesn't get kicked out. But when I do it, I get kicked out. Like, they don't understand fully all of that. And luckily for them, they don't have the mask on. So I think it's part of our responsibility to teach them to, you know, keep it off, but, you know, also teaching them that the world, you know, views them a little bit differently. So.
Right. We had one more comment in the chat box from Risha Curry. I need to work on feeling like I have to be the Black voice in my site. Also need to work on educating students more about diversity. I always feel like I'm educating people on Black issues may offend others. We're gonna get into it.
Yeah. That post today from Amanda Seals is, I don't know if anybody saw that, but that was
yes,
very
I did.
Yeah. I want to go back to where you said parents looked up to us, or people look to us. I actually had a parent come up to me today and say, Ms. Morris, what am I going to do? How am I going to talk to her? What am I going to do when school is out? How am I going to have a conversation? I'm just like, wow. I'm like, you can email me and you can talk still. I keep a Google number, so my parents can reach out to me. They know to reach out to me during a certain amount of time, between a certain amount of time. But just knowing that they want to be able to have the conversation and want to be educated on how to have the conversation. And the crucial part of it is having our non-African American, non-Hispanic or Asian parents coming and asking. I used to be irritated, like you're asking me permission to do the work. I had this conversation with the girls yesterday, and I was just like, a part of me sometimes wants to say, you passed all of the education, all of the Google sites.
Yeah.
You don't have to get permission from me to work. So what do you do? What do you do is you talk to your culture, you talk to your family, you talk to your community, and be the change in that community, just like we are. We don't ask how to volunteer or work with other children, but that is the question that is had and on the table right now very loudly. So be prepared to have to answer those questions and answer them with a little grit to get some people moving to make this change inevitable.
Kim had a comment in the chat box. I have been in my district for 18 years, and some of my students' parents were my former students. I have built a relationship with the parents so that I can pull them to the side when something is not right or something is not fair. Anisha wrote, rapport and relationship is key. I completely agree. Then I let them know, and this is going back to Kim's comment, who to talk to and get results. That's so important.
Right. Pointing them and steering them in the right direction.
And I think that's also a way for us to help our, you know, the stakeholders, like the people that we work with on talking to students that, you know, I was telling them yesterday, like, kids know when you don't care. So, and there's a lot of teachers that really don't care. Like, so pretending is not going to work. So if you don't really care, you might be in the wrong profession. But I tell them that the relationship you have with that student, have a one-on-one lunch with them, find out what's going on. I can't tell you how many times the students come into my office with an issue, a behavior concern, but has so many layers to that, you know, that teachers don't even give the time to figure out. And I know they're busy, and I know, you know, I know all of that, but you have to be able to build relationships with students, because that's the only way that they will really, you know, trust you with their information, and they'll, you know, learn from you, really.
And trust, and someone put it in the chat as well, trust is key.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, kids can recognize negative, they can recognize false, fake, you know, they know who have their hearts. And it's all in how you present yourself genuinely. Anyone else want to share before we go on to the fifth question and then have our open forum?
So I would like to share
Hi, Josie.
Hi. So one of the qualities that I've been praying about, I'm also a Christian, and I've been praying really hard this year because I had a very hard year this year because I have a co-counselor who isn't about, you know, the students and the community. She's not a change agent. So I was new to that school. I was transfer, and like I came in there like a warrior. Like I'm here. I see there's some challenges here. I did discuss with her like what have she done in the past and how does she want to work collaboratively with me. And as I went on, a couple of months went with her, like I saw that she just did like the bare minimum, and that's not who I am. Like I see that, you know, there are children that you know, are bullying each other because of what they look like and where they come from. So I started like anti-bullying campaign, and each month I did an assembly called Respect for All. So I was there. So the more I did, the more I was attacked, the more I was antagonized, the more administration didn't approve in anything that I you know I've done. Like, I mean, they from the outside they'll praise me, but from like when we're closed door, like when there's no visitors in the school, it was just kind of like giving me pushback. So with that, like I do feel like now that the current events that are happening, like all I'm doing is thinking about my students and how can I help them in this remote platform, and I just feel alone, you know. Like I want to do so much. I want to like start a conversation with parents, like a sip and chat, and just talk about like where how they're feeling, and give and provide them resources. But I just feel like I wish I had like a team behind me, you know, because this is a very hard conversation, and like someone mentioned earlier, like we wear this mask, and I just don't want to wear this mask. I want to be, you know, like the soldier in the front, because our students need us right now. Like when the whole ISIS thing happened, like kids were afraid that they were going to be sent to, you know, whatever parts of Africa they were in, or Latin America. And now this, you know, I know they're hearing it from their parents, the frustration, because when they were going through it with ISIS, they were hearing it and they were afraid to come to school because they thought that ISIS was going to come to the school and take them to a country they never knew, you know? And it's just like, I know that other states have like a guidance supervisor. We don't have that. We don't have any of that in New York. We have a manager that is not a counselor, so it's kind of hard to get guidance from someone that it's not even in the social, you know, that is not a social worker or a mental health professional, just a random administrator that doesn't get the trainings that we do. So that's where I am, and I just, you know, the why that I came here is just hoping that I'll find a network where I can, you know, get answers and, you know, maybe network with what you guys are doing so I can be that change agent. Especially right now when I know that I will be alone.
Do you guys have a state? No, Josie, that's okay. Do you guys have a state, like I know in Florida, we have the Florida School Association, and we also have it at the district level. Do you guys have anything like that in New York, like New York School Counselor Association?
Yeah, we have NISCA, but I feel like New York is so behind. Like New York now is talking about a comprehensive plan. And I was grad
Wow.
school 5 years ago, and I remember writing a comprehensive plan. This year, they're saying, oh, it's new and it's something that New York is now adopting. I'm like, how is that new? So as a counselor, I always had a mission and vision. And like my administrators, they look at me like, what is this? And what are you trying to do? And you got to do this. And I'm like, no, that's not my job. Like everything that I've been taught. And that's why I love following other counselors like in different states, because I'm like, that's the training that I got. And that's who I want to be, you know? And like, no matter like what they're trying, like everybody like works in New York as guidance counselors. And like we're not that anymore. We're data driven. What are you doing? Why are you reacting and not being proactive? And the more I speak, I'm telling you, the more I'm targeted. And I just like every night, like I pray to God, I'm like, all right, wow, God, like this has been a year. Like this is 2020 now. And now like there are more things that you're pushing me and I'm ready for it. But it's hard when no one is believing in what you're trying to do, you know, especially when you have a co-counselor that they're like, oh, I like how she works and not how, you know, and it's just strange to me. Like, I don't know.
Thank
So
you,
that's
Josie.
where I am. Yeah.
Well, I just want to say, Josie, don't be discouraged. Don't give up.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
rise up resiliently. You're not alone. A
Mhm.
lot of us, and down here, we don't have co-counselors in
Mhm.
elementary. It's us and 700 or more kids. So
Yeah.
I don't want you to ever feel like you're alone. That is one of the reasons why we have this network now. Um, so just rise up resiliently. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep working with that passion for kids and community, and it will pay off. Like we all have our days, and they'll tell you, I'll get frustrated sometimes, and I'm just like, tears coming, but I'm still working.
Mhm.
I can't give up on my kids. I can't give up on my community. I can't give up on my parents because they're relying on me. So keep doing what you're doing. Don't give up.
Thank you.
Okay, can we move on to reflection question number 5? What are some of the outcomes you'd like to take place after this conversation in profession, culture, our nation, our world, and your expectation of us? I know we spoke on that again, but some people were hesitant to respond. So I want you to go ahead and say, what expectations do you have for brown girls, Niska, Biska, Fiska, Miska, Aska?
All of it. All of it.
Aka, what expectations do you have for us? I know we're not as big as them yet.
Come on.
But we're here now and we're trying to find a solution. Some of you may know, if you follow us on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, that I did ask for a seat at the table of the conversation with Aska. I have yet to hear back from them, but I'm going to keep knocking on that door so that we can be part of that conversation. So a lot of your concerns that we have tonight, we do plan to present them to them because our voices need to be heard in this instance. So take a moment and reflect, and then we'll share out. Again, I want to thank you all for joining us and participating. I feel like this is going to be rich and good. It already is, and I'm very appreciative of you guys being here. How's everyone doing in this conversation?
I feel good.
I'll share out a little bit. I think as Risa mentioned, the Instagram community has been wonderful, like getting to know other counselors, other teachers, getting resources and all of that. So I think this group having a targeted specific agenda, I think is just wonderful. Like being able to be a part of it and getting to know, other counselors that are working with students that look like us. It just makes you feel a little bit more. For me, I think this meeting kind of just like lit a fire under me. Like it makes me like want to just make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing for my brown children. Students, I should say, not children.
And just to piggyback on what you said, Anisha, I think it's also important that when we come up with these ideas that we're also like, we want our white school counselors to be a part of this too, because they also are teaching our children. They're counselors to our children. So we want to make sure that they are addressing these issues as well.
Does anybody else want to share out?
I do. Hey, this is Kim.
Hi, Kim.
Hello. I guess how I found out about the group, which was through a webinar that I attended. And you mentioned this particular group, and I went directly to it, and I said, I gotta join.
I saw you. I was watching. Thank you.
I've got to join. I guess the thing with me is I know each person has a skill set or a talent, and I saw that talent from the webinar with the building of the website. And I know that's something that I need to kind of tap into so my kids can see the different things, as well as I've been seeing on Facebook the virtual classroom using the little, I can't even think of the name of it because that's kind of how out of touch I am with it.
Emoji.
That's it. They were using those. So that's something that I think I would like to, learn, as well as be an advocate. But I also want to kind of learn these different things to kind of get my kids involved more when they see things like this, or the little virtual classroom and so forth. Because I know with us with the distance learning, I may not be able to go into the classroom like I used to and do the classroom guidance with my students. So I'm looking at alternatives and ideas for that distance learning, or just anything that I can pretty much learn while we are out at this particular time.
Great. Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, Kim. It is our goal at Brown Girls. Like I said in the beginning, some of you guys came on afterwards. This was not the precise way we wanted to present Brown Girls Who Counsel. We had some other things in planning, and I'm sure you guys heard our recordings that says, stand by. Thank you for joining us. We're working on some things, and we want to collaborate with you all. We were preparing for Brown Girls, but the push was for now. So we do have events that we're going to be having. We do plan on expanding into other states. Right now we're in Florida. So it is our goal to come to you guys' states, have these conversations and events where we talk about the different things that we can offer to our students and to ourselves. To build each other up. The resources, we're working on some resources actually for Brown Girls, so be on the lookout for that. But also having those webinars and having those conferences and events where we can come to you or sit on platforms like these and present things to you about professionalism, packaging, any resource or PDs that you would like to have from us. We're taking suggestions. So those are the things that we have in the works for us. But this conversation was most important. So our first event ended up being this, and I'm not displeased because I hear your voices. So I know what work we need to do. So thank you so much, Kim. And thank you for jumping on. Yes, one of our founding members, who's also over our events, Genevieve, was asked to be on FISCA and present that. And Anisha as well has gone forth and did some trainings on YouTube and posted on our page on how to use those outlets for webs. And so we thank them, and we're going to continue to work. Some of the faces in these entities are about to change the color. But so before we go on, does anybody want to go ahead and reflect on this question again?
This is Michelle. I'll just say that I am a fairly new school counselor. I was a teacher first, and when I did my my counseling program and jumped into being at the time a middle school counselor, I realized very quickly that I was ill prepared. So even though it is year 5, I'm still constantly learning. And as such, I joined, a very popular, I'm pretty sure many of us are familiar with it, elementary counseling group. And I found that when my kids were dealing with life, I would get these cute answers and these really cute bulletin boards and like, what kind of shoes are you, like, it just was not anything that's going to truly be data driven. Or if I mentioned, or if other people mentioned what their kids were going through, they were very sarcastic and bitter responses. And so I find that what I'm looking for is what you guys are giving right now. And that's the honesty, being realistic about what our kids are experiencing and being impactful. I don't want to be the counselor that has the really cute bulletin board. I mean, I do, but
all right. Next counselor.
I can use some growth there, but that's not enough because, when our kids, I'm an elementary counselor right now, but like when they matriculate into middle school and eventually high school, they're the kids that are going to be the adults that have to make the decisions that affect our lives. And that's personally why I went into being a teacher and then a counselor. It's not because I like kids, it's because I need it better for our world.
Right.
And it does not do anybody any good to play with this job that we have. So that's the outcome that I'm expecting, is just for us to be as impactful and realistic. And I'm just so thankful that we are able to have this forum today. I need it. I really do.
Thank you, Nichelle. That makes us feel very happy.
Yes, it gives us kind of like a confirmation that we're on the right path. Anybody else want to share? We have a couple of people that are still joining. So if you see me looking down at my phone, it's because I'm getting text messages asking, is it too late to come in? No, it's not too late. We're not at our capacity. I'm watching it. But does anybody else want to share out your expectations?
I'm just hoping that we can share some resources so that way we can start the conversation with our community. So I went online to look up things like how to have conversation with elementary school students or like lesson plans. But I wasn't able to find much. I found a bunch of books, but like starting that conversation on like riots and what we're going through right now, now that, that we're quarantined and the virus and now this, I'm hoping that if someone's doing something that they feel effective, to just share some resources. That's kind of what my expectations.
Okay. All right. So I'm glad you said that, Josie. Before I speak to what Josie just said, does anybody else want to share? Because I'm a person, I'm always writing, and when ideas come to me, I don't leave them behind. So I do have something that was not a part of what we're doing, but as it comes to me, I'm going to share it with you because I know we need to have that conversation. So does anybody else want to share before I give you a challenge?
I wanted to share. I just I hope that, as you said before, we're not as big as them yet. I'm praying for that yet, to come soon because, and just in time so that we don't always have to agree, but we need to get to a place where at least people are listening to us and they're hearing that we go through different things that are so much different than a lot of our colleagues, let alone our kids. But how do you address the stuff that our kids are going through? We can't even be addressed. If nobody can address it for us, and so I'm hoping that the ideas that are shared here, that the heart that all this is expressed with can go and be heard, from a bigger and large population to actually cultivate the change that we're looking for in the world right now with everything else. So that is my expectation. That is my hope. That is my prayer. I know that's bigger than us, but as right now, but I know for sure it will be good.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you,
I didn't want to
Risa.
say your name wrong. Thank you, Risa. Can you tell us a little bit about you and what capacity you work in?
Okay, y'all. I'm gonna be on video. Okay,
Come on.
I don't know what I look like right now, but anyway.
Well, since you turned it on, I have to remind you we're being recorded. If that's okay with you.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
I'm an elementary school counselor. I work for Los Angeles, I work in Los Angeles, California, and I work for a predominantly high API population. So most of my students are Asian Pacific Islanders right now, and you know, some of the issues that I feel like I face and the thing, just being a Black counselor in the midst of people who don't look like me. You know what I mean? And trying to figure out how to navigate that and trying to figure, I feel like I had on that mask for a very long time because nobody taught me what it was supposed to look like. What am I supposed to look like in this environment? Am I docile? You know, do I not say what I actually feel? Do I speak in a different tone or in a different way? Because I don't want to offend anybody, but I found myself in a space where I couldn't let my credentials talk for themselves. I had to let you know and remind you that I was educated just like everybody else here. And so I feel like, say that again?
Or even more so.
Yes. And so, you know, I really feel like I've finally gotten to a space where I'm talking like I want to talk, you know. Like I said, I grew up in South Central LA, and the way I speak should not dictate how others perceive me. And you know, I'm new to this, and I don't have a co-counselor, anybody to look at. It's just me by myself with 850 kids who don't look like me. And I don't know. I shared something on Instagram the other day. I don't want my kids to come back and say, oh, you know what? Yeah, I knew a Black person once. It was my Black counselor. Yeah, she was nice. You know what I mean? But I find myself having to justify that. And I don't think that a lot of times I have no idea what to do. So I hope I'm not talking in circles, but those are my concerns. And the things that I would like, I just need people to know. You don't got to get it, but I just need you to know what I go through every day to educate your children, as well as going through my own personal experiences with my little Black boys at home. You know, so yeah.
Thank you, Risa.
Thank you.
Great.
Whew. Amen. So in that, like I said, when people speak, things come to me, and I don't let it sit stale because I want us to do the work. So I have two things that I want to challenge us to do. So if you guys have paper, a pen, or a doodle napkin to doodle on, or whatever you have before you, I want you to write these two things down, and I want you to share it with us. We'll give you our email address. If you don't want to put it on social media, some of you might not want to, but one of them I want to challenge you to do and put on social media. So I'll do that one first. So I brought up the mask on, that we're having to wear masks outside, and I know they're not expensive. I mean, they're not inexpensive, but a lot of people are creating masks. So if you have a mask at your home, I want you to take a marker, and I want you to write everything that you feel on that mask with that marker. And I want you to design it in how you feel. On the flip side of that mask, I want you to write a letter to yourself and the people who are watching to the change that you want to see. How you feel right now on the inside, I want it to reflect on the outside of that mask. And how you want to feel, I want that to be on the inside. You get what I'm saying? We're flipping it around so you can see what we actually feel. So I saw that I'm tired, I'm confused, I'm overwhelmed, I'm hurting. I want you to put that on your mask. Any questions about that challenge really quickly? I'll give you guys if you want me to repeat it, I'll repeat it as well before I go on to the other challenge. And this challenge will be building a resource for yourself.
Can you repeat it real quick? I had stepped away for a minute.
Okay, so I'm gonna step away and get a mask. So I'll show, because I know I'm a visual learner too. So I'm gonna grab a mask really quick, okay?
This year, this school year was one of the first year, well, since I've been there, that we've had a Black History Month program at my school. And we have, we're probably, I don't know the exact percentage, but I would say at least 60, 70% African-American at my school. So it was very informative, very educational. The principal loved it, the teachers loved it, the students loved it. So since all of this has been happening, because it was kind of like fun, even though it was informational. So I reached out to the person that helped me put it on, the teacher, and I was like, I'm already thinking about next February, like what we're gonna do, how we're gonna, set it up. And she told me that she was trying to incorporate Black history into her entire curriculum. So I'm not sure how she's gonna do it yet. She has the summer to think about it, but she was just like, she feels like it's not enough. It's just not enough information that's shared with the students. So she said that she was working on a way to get that into her curriculum. So if I get that information, I will definitely share how she did that, because that would be great if we can, not just learn about Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, but learn about Black Wall Street, like learn about things that I personally never knew until I was pretty much an adult. So, I think our kids probably should have that information. I definitely want them to have it before I got it.
Right.
Malicia took the liberty and went ahead and wrote the instructions for the mask challenge in the chat box. So thank you, Malicia.
Yes, thank you, Malicia. So just a quick demonstration. So we know that it's a certain way we wear the mask, and one side is on our face and one side is exposed to everyone else. So I want you, the things that are inside of you that you have had to mask for so long, I want you to write it on here. Just like my mom, who is on here, created this mask for me, designing our mask for us. So we have our inside and our outside. I want you to take time to design a mask on how you're feeling on the inside and have had to quiet. And on the inside of the mask, I want you to put the things that you want to see, the change you want to see, how you really want to feel, how you really want to be accepted and understood. Okay? Did that help, Kim? I hope so. Kim, if it did, give me a okay, I was gonna say give me a reaction.
I'm gonna go get a mask.
Okay. Are you guys ready for me to give the other challenge? So that challenge is for you personally as a woman of color, a challenge for you personally to take the mask off, even though we have to wear the mask. And I'm not saying you have to wear it out, but if you want to wear it out, by all means, wear it out. Okay, so my next challenge, we talked about resources and we talked about the things that we're working on, but we didn't delve into it. And I know we need to start planning to have this conversation with our students and families, or our clients, for those of you who work in other mental health capacities outside of the school. So this challenge is writing a letter to your students. And this student is actually going to be you. While you're writing that letter, I want you to put a mirror up in front of yourself. And I want you to write a letter unfiltered to your student, who is you, or the students that you can have them in mind, but I want you to be as free in having this conversation in this letter to your students. I want you to write that letter unfiltered, everything that you want to share, from the riots, for colorism, for being discriminated against. You can even tell them a story. Like I have a story from college that is just ringing in my ears every day, where I was spit on while I was attending Florida A&M and on FSU's campus. So I'm gonna share that in my letter. Like, how did that make me feel, and why I don't want to ever feel that way ever again. Like, to be spit on is one of the most lowest things that you could ever well, one of the lowest things that you could ever be exposed to. And I never in my wildest dreams thought that someone would spit on me. And it was intentional and it hurt. I was minding my own business, going to a Q party, and it was a high rise. It was a 2-story place I was going into, and it was like a covering. And the student, FSU student who was standing on the top part, called to get my attention, and I looked up and he spit on my face. And that was one of the worst feelings. I've had some trials, but that was one of the worst feelings I could ever feel. So I want you to include those kind of stories in there. And then once you've written that rich, unfiltered letter to yourself, here's how you change the conversation. I want you to take that same letter and I want you to open the thesaurus, and I want you to find words that are more professional in telling this story. So give it your grit and your all. Yeah, I'm asking you to clean it up because of our community, our profession, but I want you to get it all out, and then I want you to recreate it in a way that is more presentable professionally. So if you're gonna cuss in your letter, cuss in your letter, but find a way to make that thing turn around into a conversation that you can actually have, where you expose gently, but with a little nudge. Okay, and I think Malicia has typed that in there. But if you want to come on and ask a question, feel free. We're at 7:44. I want to ask you guys' permission to continue on. If you can stay here, please let us know, because we're going to open it up to go even further. I know we've shared a lot already, but I do feel like it's other people in here who want to share, who haven't had an opportunity to share. So if you're okay with us continue, give me a reaction of hand claps in the reaction section. Hopefully I see them this time, because I'm usually doing other stuff and miss them. So I'm right here. Okay, Josie, I see your hand clap. All right, Kim, I see yours. Naisha, can you please share, you know me and my brown hearts and brown hands. So if you ever look at our social media, I always put brown hearts. Can you share how we change our hands to our complexion? You're still muted.
Sorry about that.
There you go.
It's in settings. I don't know if you can do it while you're in the call. It's in like the settings before you start the call. Yeah, I definitely changed my little hands to brown.
Okay. So to all of our ladies who are leaving, I want to just thank you really quickly for joining us tonight. Please, please, please feel free to email us at browngirlswhocounsel@gmail.com if you want to share even further, if you didn't get an opportunity to express yourself or share your questions or concerns. Please, please, please share that with us, and we'll try to respond to you as quickly as possible. Again, that is browngirlswhocounsel@gmail.com.
And I would also ask that maybe they can share any resources that they have found, so that we can maybe send out to the participants in the meeting.
Right. Yes.
So if you want to email that to us, that would be great.
Okay. So with those who are still with us, we won't tarry too much longer. We'll go ahead and start opening up the conversation. When you're ready to speak, you can either raise your hand or type in the text message. Hey, Lucy. Hey, Anisha. Hey, Malicia, because they're watching the chat. I have something I would like to share, and we'll call upon you to share. So again, for the ladies who are leaving, thank you so very much. You are valued so much here, and we're working, doing our best to work on behalf of all of us. So thank you again. And with that said, Lucy, can you go ahead and remind us of the housekeeping rules?
I think you're muted.
On mute. Oh.
I'm actually following the housekeeping rules. Stay muted unless you have a question. Cameras off to avoid the distractions, being professional. And at this point, you can either type your questions in or you can raise your hand to speak. Thank you.
So I'm gonna open my chat window so I can see them as well to assist you ladies. So anyone would like to speak now?
I think they got it all out.
Are you referring to the mask?
You're muted.
Am I muted?
No,
not
we hear you, Kim.
Fran.
We couldn't hear Fran.
It was me. Sorry, guys. I was saying, in general, if you want to talk about the mask, if you want to talk about anything that you want to voice, any concern. I'm sorry for making you cry, Nicole. I just saw that. But anything you want to share, Kim, it's an open session now. So if you could, one of the things, we want to limit it to 1 minute, but if you go over, we're not going to tap you on the shoulder. We really want to listen wholeheartedly and hear you.
Okay, I'm gonna do the one with the mask. Okay, here it is. Here. And basically, how I'm feeling: angry, tired, sad, and emotionally drained are my feelings right now. I would like to feel socially equipped, and I would like to be able to express my feelings without repercussion.
Nice.
That without repercussion, yes, because that is a scary part. Like, will we
Trying
be
not to be the angry
reprimanded? Right. Or, what did you say, Nate?
Trying not to be the angry Black woman or the assertive. You know, they say angry, but if you're assertive, you know, so it's difficult.
All right. Thank you so much, Kim. Anything else you want to share, Kim?
I'll let somebody else go. I don't want to take up the whole everything, so I'll let somebody else speak.
It's your moment. Does anybody else want to come in and share? Or anybody want to expound on how you're feeling? Or ask any questions about things that were shared here? Anybody have any resources you want to share?
This is Michelle. I tried to do a hands up, but I only had a thumb and it looked weird. So.
Okay. I saw it.
As I had shared like in the chat room, I've had quite a few coworkers or colleagues within my district that have reached out, and well, white colleagues and staff members that have reached out. And on one hand, I'm very thankful that they have been reaching out, because I know that's been shared like on social media to check in on us. But I'm exhausted, and that exhausts me even more because some of them I am good friends with and I can speak candidly with. And then others, it's like, I don't know. It's kind of like how we always talk about this mask still, like, I don't know what I may say that may trigger them, or I end up consoling them, or it just gets to be a lot. And particularly like this evening, my admin team, there's a coworker who reached out, and her fiance, he's African-American and he's on the police force. And she's, you know, expressing her own thoughts that are very much valid about being worried for him. But it turned that whole narrative, and they're looking at me like, okay, counselor, what resources do you have? And I have resources, but I'll be honest, like, I don't want to give resources right now. And it's not because I'm trying to be stingy. It's just, I too need to breathe. You know, I too need to be able to take care of myself. And it just gets to, you know, they always say like, who takes care of the caretaker? And that's how I feel, even with our students, not necessarily right now, because our kids aren't really showing outright what their needs discrimination, but I've had that experience through the school year under normal circumstances where there's a crisis and I need someone to check in on me as well. So tomorrow we're having our staff meeting, and I'm supposed to lead. And again, I have the resources, but it's like, can someone else say something right now? Because I've got 500 kids and 70 staff members looking at me, and it's just a lot. So just trying to find that balance where maybe I can push it to someone else without disrespecting our role as a school counselor.
I totally agree. It is exhausting.
We know that push will always be there because we are the therapists. I was just reading Nakia's response. I kind of chuckled.
Boundaries.
Yeah, setting boundaries. But they're always going to call on us because we are the ones who are designed or assigned to have these conversations and dialogues with our students. So here's what I do. I have to keep mirrors. You can't see in my house too much, but there's one over there and it's another one over there. But I talk to myself in these mirrors, and the things that I'm just like Nakia just said, get a counselor, get a therapist. I'll say that, but then I'll end up ultimately doing the work because in the back of my mind, I'm like, what I'm doing is for the kids. It's not just for that person. And I have to get out of my own way sometimes and do those things that I don't want to do, because you should be able to find these resources. I feel you on that, Nichelle. But if they're not going to do the work, who's going to be at loss? Right. That's always what comes back to me. Who is going to be the loser in this situation if the work is not done? And who's to say they're going to use the resource that you have, but at least you did your due diligence, and it gives you an opportunity to present this to who matters the most, which is our kids, our clients, our parents, and community. So,
absolutely. Yeah. Usually I tell people I don't counsel adults. My license only goes to...
I said that before.
Yep.
I'm guilty. I specialize in children. Go ahead, Nichelle. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that was it. I was just
okay.
I do have those boundaries. I will say, I'm glad that you mentioned like who's at loss, because I know that a lot of times if I take a step back, then it's going to be my kids. So there will be times where, yes, I absolutely have to have boundaries. And then sometimes I will need to push through. So thank you for saying that.
Yeah. No problem. I have to remind myself too, child, I'm not perfect, but when it comes to them, everything stops. I'm the leader of a bunch of departments in my school, and none of it matters when it comes to my kids. I will drop everything for them. Testing, ESOL, RT, all of that. If a child in my school needs me, that's where I am. And if they are in need and someone's not filling that void, I'm gonna fill it, because I don't want them to be lesser humans in the future. I want them to be better humans.
I think also, we have an equity liaison at our school who I don't feel is the best fit for the position, but I think if you do have that role at your schools, holding that person accountable for like professional development trainings, because we didn't really have any, but I do know that a lot of teachers need them. So that way the burden won't be so much on you to be the token, brown person at the school that has to know all things brown, like you have to be that spokesperson for everything that's going on in the news and everything. Because that is exhausting. And like on one hand, you do want to help because you do want them to have the information. But on the other hand, the same way we found out about it is the same way you need to find out about it. Like it wasn't taught to us. So, you have to go and do your own research. Now I do, like on my Instagram page, I posted a bunch of books that they can read. I have a lot of teachers on my page. So, I didn't really say much about it, but here's some resources. If you really want to do the work, then they will go find what they need to find. It's everywhere. So yeah, I think boundaries are important, and holding people accountable that are in those positions that can, bring that professional development to the teachers, because some of them really don't know, and some of them don't care to know, but some of them might care to know and just don't. So I think yeah, I was like, next year, definitely gonna make sure that we push for those professional developments for the staff, because it's a lot of non-Black teachers or non-brown teachers teaching a lot of brown children.
I agree. The information is definitely out there, and I think that people or non-white, non-brown people need to first acknowledge that this is a problem. Racism does exist before we can even have a conversation, because I am in the counseling group on Facebook, the elementary exchange group, and the discussion of white privilege came up, and I found myself going back and forth with school counselors about, you know, the idea that white privilege even exists, or that racism is even a problem. So, and it made me very upset that we're talking about counselors here. So I can only imagine what that school, they are a counselor at, how they feel about children. So there is definitely a huge a problem. Racism is huge. It's a big problem that really needs to be addressed in education, especially.
Yeah. And I think because they are probably more embarrassed about Black history and everything, it's easier for them to sweep it under the rug instead of talking about it. Whereas we are on the other side of that, we want to talk about it. So I think definitely that bridge somewhere needs to be, you know, that gap needs to be closed, because, you know, like the I think Risa's student said, her son said, or was it Risa or somebody else? Maybe it was Michelle, that their son said, what are they teaching? What are the white people teaching their children? Like, that is a very good question, because they're looking at it from the other side of things. They don't want to tell their child, like, this is the history of how white people treated other people, or so, you know, it's harder for them to have those conversations. And I think even with us, like, they don't want to talk to us about it. So I think somehow those gaps have to be closed for us to have those conversations with them, so that they can have them with the children, and or some sort of professional development needs to happen, because, or it needs to be, you know, system wide, because really it's not specific to a certain school or state even. So
our district, it starts with leadership.
Yeah.
The people starts on the top.
Yep.
Right. We had a young lady reach out to us from Colorado, and she was wanting to be on the call. I wish I would have gauged her information to let her be here, but she was a woman of non-color, and she was expressing her concerns about the imbalance in her own state and wanted to find a solution, and was reaching out to us for it. So there will be an expectation from even our colleagues and community, people in our community of non-color, who will call upon us to see what we're thinking and get ideas, to have those conversations, because they're ready to do the work. I know it's going to be challenging, because like you said, what are you telling them? What side of the story? Because every story has multiple parts. What side of the story are you telling? Like, are you telling the truth of the things that transpired to Black and brown people in the United States and globally? Or are you telling a softer version? Like, you need to tell the harsh, gritty truth so your kids can understand. Nichelle, can you come on and share that? If you're comfortable.
Yes, I had to find the mute button. Okay. Oh Lordy, what did I just share? I was typing so much. Oh, I was just saying, I find a lot of times that educators at any level are so focused on the academic gap, like, you know, closing that gap. We fill out these forms, but we don't realize that it's racism and discrimination that can play a huge role in creating that gap. And then even furthermore, like, I think of several of our students that achieve so well academically, but what happens when they turn 18? I mean, we have names and names of people who have been in harm's way and murdered, and they were great people. You know, their SEL scores were high and their academics were high, and we've got to do a better job of making sure that not only our students are aware of that, but also our staff, so that we can work to dismantle those things. In my opinion, what's the point of having a straight A student by the time they graduate, getting them off to college if they're not going to have a job? You know, that, or there's going to be to the reverse of that, of what's the point in getting our kids prepared, our Black and brown kids prepared for that, but our white kids are not prepared to push their pride away and not discriminate against us when they're adults. I mean, these people that have done horrible things to Black and brown people, they were kids in our classrooms before. So we've got to do the work with all groups of people.
Yeah.
Right. And I believe the foundation starts in primary, like preschool, elementary, teaching them from there and continuing it on. Being that I've worked in all levels, middle was not my favorite, but that was where I started. But continuing that conversation, because it gets lost in transition or translation when they get to middle school. They become independent, and then they become little adults, what do you call them, adolescent adults, or so they start forming who they are. And that goes back to our principles 101 in counseling, human growth and the development, that this is where they begin to grow. So we start at foundation and we continue that uniformly throughout their course of learning in middle school and high school. When they get to college, they'll have those things seated in the back of their mind and tapping on the forefront of their brains to continue to be better people. Does anybody, thank you, Nichelle, so much for that. I was like, I can't read all of that, but I want her to say it, and I want to hear your heart when you say it.
Absolutely. I feel like we can do all this academic work, but what's the point? You know,
Right.
We need to be able to work together in our communities.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. Just to piggyback on that really quickly, one of my my literacy coach came to me one day. She was doing we do these tests, these reading tests. They're called BAS down here, BAS. But she was giving the student the reading test, and the student asked her, how come there are no Black kids in this book, in this story? So she came to me and told me that he said that, but she like kind of was like, I guess she was like taken aback, but also kind of like embarrassed, because she didn't know how to even respond, like how to respond to it. And I was like, well, why are there not any Black kids in any of our books? Like, you know, the representation is very important, and our kids do not have that. Like, they don't, you know, some of the stories they would find that they can't even relate to. Some of them may have never been to a playground, or some of them don't have a swimming pool. And, you know, so like, it's just, yeah. Academic definitely plays a role. The race definitely plays a role in their academics, for sure.
Okay. Thank you, Nay. Anisha.
It's okay.
Okay. So does anybody else want to share out even further? We do plan to continue these conversations and delve a little bit more deeper into racism. I know we have a lot in our heart. Does anybody want to share anything, any experience that they have that they want to get off of their chest? Any resource that you found useful, or just any last minutes that you want to get off? I don't want anybody to leave here full before we wrap up this conversation.
Hi,
I'm
it's
sure.
Angel. Oh, you
Hi,
can go,
go
Josie.
for it, Angel. No. Go for it, Angel. I'm a little nervous.
Don't be nervous, Josie.
So one of the things that I just have been thinking about over and over the past few days is just how there are layers to all of this that I feel like aren't talked about, and the way that, like, everybody can look at what's happened well, a lot of people can look at what's happened recently and be like, oh, that was racism, but then they don't see how racism is happening in other ways, in like directly in their communities, or how they're perpetuating it, or how different groups of people are impacted by racism. So I think a lot about the fact that, like, I'm certified to do professional development specifically about LGBTQ plus issues. And so Black LGBTQ plus people are experiencing racism plus all the other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not something that's usually talked about. And like, girls are experiencing racism in different ways than the boys are experiencing racism. And people, like, in educational spaces, it's like, if racism comes up, I feel like non-brown educators are quick to gravitate towards one little box of, okay, this is racism, we've got it. And it's like, no, this is much bigger than that.
It's much bigger, yes.
Yeah, and so I'm like constantly frustrated with that, but not knowing how to bring it up or how to like make a real change. Like, even if I'm having like one-on-one conversation with someone about it, it's like, but the people making the decisions are still like, no, this is the one box of racism. It's like, I think about in my very first job, which was at a church, a predominantly white church, they decided that they wanted to have this big anti-racism push. And when they were doing it, somebody, I think one of the Black parishioners had brought up to them, like, you know, this is bigger than just this one box. Like, these are other issues that we could be talking about. And the rector was like, oh, well, we can only focus on one thing at a time. Like, it's too much. And it's like, well, there are people who are impacted by all of those things at one time. And like, the racism is being exacerbated by these other things. And I feel like even though I didn't get a chance to have those conversations with people when I was interning in a school, that's something that I was seeing students experiencing. Like, I'm dealing with all of this racism and then this other stuff on top of it, and y'all aren't really getting how these things are intersecting and how the racism is making these things worse.
Thank you for that, Angel.
Yes.
And you are right, they do overlap. LGBT plus. I like that you put it that way. A lot of people still stop at T, but there's much more behind that T now. But they do face some of the racism and sexism and colorism even more harshly. So thank you for that. Josie, are you unscared? Do it scared. Okay, that's one of my mottos. Do it scared.
All right, I'm a little nervous, so when I get nervous, I start to ramble. So you just let me know that I'm rambling. I'm in a safe place, so don't worry.
Yes.
So I'm just, you asked how you all are feeling, right? And I'm just feeling like I'm listening to you all, and I'm frustrated with my administrators because what's today? Tuesday, right? And there hasn't been an email sent. There hasn't been anything about what's going on and what happened this weekend in New York. And to me, it's like I feel like again, it's this avoidance. Like it starts. Someone mentioned it starts from the top. So why haven't they started this conversation, especially for teachers that are not comfortable in having conversations like this? Like, I had a teacher yesterday email me, he's a white teacher, PE teacher. He asked me how can he address the students if this comes up. So I gave him some guidance and gave him like some talking points. And then he was like, well, can you come and do it? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I guess I took it as he's not comfortable, let him do it. Let me, which is why he asked me to do it. But I feel like there needs to be like a conversation, like we all need to meet on Zoom, because I'm sure everyone is feeling like what he's feeling. Like, okay, if a kid brings something up, how do I address it? And then I know if I were to write an email and say, hey, everyone, join me on Zoom. I want to know what you guys are all feeling. I'm going to be chastised. I'm going to be, I don't know how to explain it. Like, because I'm being constantly told, oh, I'm the administrator, you're the counselor, but then do something, you're our leader, but they always choose. I have one principal and one assistant principal, and they always choose to ignore events when it happens. Like, this is not the first time, and I'm not surprised. There are many events that happens in New York, and like they just ignore it, and I just don't know what to do. Like, should I start the conversation or just wait for them? But when you wait and you have people you have teachers that come across students and they don't know how to have that conversation, then I feel bad that I should have did something about it. I don't know if this makes any sense, but that's where I am right now.
It makes sense, Angel. In a lot of cases, we are asked to do things that we don't necessarily want to do. And one thing that I have started doing in my own school is when I really want to do something, I keep coming to him until he gives me permission to do it. Or I'll plan it out. I'll structure it and show him why it's necessary. Try to show the data and research showing that it is something that will work or needs to be done. And most times I'll be like, "So you're gonna talk here, speaking points that you could do?" And he's like, "Oh no, I'll support you. Go ahead." So prepare yourself. Like when you do these presentations, have the reasoning why.
Right.
Just like we asked you what your why was in the beginning, start writing your presentation to him about this conversation with your why. So write a letter of why to yourself, why you want to have the conversation. Just like we had the conversation tonight. We knew that it was a need for us to express ourselves as a whole in this community because we're called on a whole lot to have these discussions. So I would say prepare a good presentation for that. And then when does your summer start? That's a question I have. When does your summer start?
At the end of the month.
Okay, so you're still in school.
Yeah, I'm still in school we always end at the end of the month. So we start summer break July 1st.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. So we got 1 month still.
So I would well, Lucy, go ahead.
No, I was just being very cognizant of the time. And Josie, I want you to know that we are available as a resource to use. So you can always reach out to us with questions or concerns that you may have. Are you guys still there?
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah. Okay. For a minute, my screen just went black, so I apologize about that. Josie, I will gladly put my information in the chat box if you have any things, and I could share some ideas with you of things that I've done in the past.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. So with that being said, ladies, I want to go ahead and I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. I think this was a very much needed conversation. I feel we have touched the surface of the things that we need to express. We will be planning future conversations like soon. So don't worry, we are here and we will be having these conversations and trying to come up with solutions. We do encourage, if you have anything or come across anything that is helpful and useful, that you can share it to us. And as things come to us, we'll share it with you. I do want to leave you with one comment or statement that I would love for you to keep reminding yourself. Okay, so again, if you have that pencil out, I'm that teacher still, the teacher counselor. Teacher Bay. So I want you to write the following down. And this is what I do believe in all of us, in each of us, that we are. You matter. You are enough. You are resilient. And you were built to do this work. So do it, even if you have to do it scared. We are here for you. Please keep in contact with us. Keep following us. Encourage other brown girls who counsel to reach out and follow our page, so that we can have a community where we can come and be safe in what we need to share and plan the things that we need to plan. I hope that you took away something that is worth having, and that you are ready to start that movement forward. Okay? Anybody else want to share before we close?
I just wanted to say, ladies, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, Lucy.
I wanted to say, ladies, thank you so much for joining us. We will be sending out a survey just for feedback. You know, this is our first ever presentation, so your feedback is so important to us. So you will receive an email, so please make sure you fill out that survey. And I will be announcing the winner shortly. I'm just waiting for the random name selector to select a name. So give me a moment here. And you will be winning a $20 Amazon gift card. So let's see who the lucky winner is.
Me? No.
I know, right?
Anisha, you can go ahead and give your closing statement, and then I'll announce the winner at the end.
Malicia too, if Malicia is still on, if she can give her closing statement as well.
Okay, I just wanted to say thank you. I put in the chat our handle for Instagram. You can search us on Facebook and Twitter, and also our email, browngirlswhocounsel@gmail.com. Thank you so much. We are always nervous to do these things and wondering who will show up, and but we really appreciate you coming in and not only being here, but giving feedback and participating. So we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I just want to say thank you for coming. Thank you for participating and sharing your experiences. Honestly, it was really rewarding for me. I was taking notes and was writing down all the challenges so I could do it once we're off screen. I am very open to collaboration. I can't wait to work with you all in the future.
All right. Drum roll, please. Ding, 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 ding. All right, and the winner is, according to the random name selector, Miss Austin.
Miss Austin. Who is Miss Austin? Raise your hand.
Miss Austin, you here?
Okay, Miss Austin.
How you doing?
Hi.
How are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself really quickly, and congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Well, thanks, Lucy, for the invite. Secondly, I am actually a teacher, and I was just listening to the stuff because I also work at a school that's very diverse, but they don't understand the students of my complexion. So it was good to get different feedback from different counselors because, the counselors we have, they're also not my complexion. So it's good to hear different insight on the stuff.
Thank you for coming.
You're
yes,
welcome.
thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So without any further ado, I pray that everything goes well with you in this week and in this time, guys. We thank you for taking out the opportunity to spend with us. We hope that your endeavors in whichever direction you're working on, because I know some of us have other projects outside of counseling, that they are blessed and that forward movement begins. It's go time, ladies. We love you guys and we thank you guys. Have an awesome, fabulous night, week, and being you. Good night.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was great.
Thank you all. Please make sure to fill out the survey because we do need that feedback.